"Mr. Holloway, our pipeline cuts straight through your backyard, deal with it." That's what the HOA president said to my face at 8 in the morning, in heels sharp enough to kill a man and perfume strong enough to qualify as chemical warfare, and the wild part is, she wasn't even trying to sound reasonable. She wanted me to flinch, she wanted my guys to hear it, she wanted to enjoy it. My name's Marcus Holloway, and 6 months ago my biggest worry was keeping Danny Rodriguez from power sanding his remaining fingers down to nubs, which, if you've never tried to talk a one-armed Marine out of just finishing the edge real quick, you haven't lived. Danny's one of 12 disabled vets who show up at my workshop 3 times a week, men who left pieces of themselves in Afghanistan and Iraq, then came home and learned America's attention span for heroes lasts about as long as a halftime show. My workshop sits on 3 acres of Georgia farmland my grandmother Rose left me, the kind of place where you can still hear yourself think, and the air doesn't taste like car exhaust. Most mornings I'd sit on a wraparound porch with coffee that could strip paint, listening to mockingbirds trash talk each other in the oak trees, smelling fresh sawdust mixing with honeysuckle, and that damp red clay scent of dew. That's what peace smells like, in case you ever wondered. Rose's old farmhouse had solid bones, 1940s stubborn, the kind of wood that doesn't apologize. I'd converted the barn into a workshop, kept the original well that had been pumping sweet water since Truman was president, and we were wedged between the fancy new Willowbrook subdivision and County Road 47, like a blue-collar sandwich between 2 slices of white bread. And that's where Vivian Blackthorne blew into my life. Picture a white BMW barreling up my gravel drive like it's fleeing a crime scene, dust cloud behind it like a demolition derby highlight reel. Out steps this woman in full corporate armor, business suit, hair sprayed into a helmet, clutching a leather portfolio like it contains nuclear launch codes. She clickety-clacked across my gravel in heels that belonged in a boardroom, not a barnyard, each step sounding like an angry woodpecker having a nervous breakdown. "Mr. Holloway," she said, like my last name offended her. "I'm Vivian Blackthorne, Willowbrook HOA president. We're here about your property's utility easement." Notice she said we're here like she brought an army. Classic power move. I've seen drill sergeants with more subtlety. "Ma'am," I said, staying on the porch because I wasn't about to step into her little stage, "I don't recall inviting any discussions about my property." She whipped papers out faster than a gunslinger. "There's a utility easement across your land. We're installing a pipeline for essential community infrastructure." The document looked official, county seal, fancy letterhead, the whole performance, but 20 years as a military engineer teaches you to smell nonsense the way a bloodhound smells bacon. I scanned it, and my thumb stopped on a line like it hit a landmine. "This easement is from 1963, I said. "It's for telephone infrastructure." Vivian's left eye twitched like a broken turn signal. Utility easements cover all infrastructure. And then her perfume hit me, some floral nightmare, so aggressive it could have been used to clear caves. Through the barn doors behind me I could see my guys working on a coffee table for Danny's daughter, 3 of them glancing toward the porch like they'd rather face enemy fire than whatever was happening out here. "Where exactly does this pipeline run?" I asked. She unfolded a site map, and my stomach dropped. A thick red line slashed straight through my workshop foundation, past Rose's well, right through the heart of everything these men had helped me build. "Route's non-negotiable," she said, smiling without warmth. "I'm sure someone with your background understands following proper authority." The way she said background, like my service record, was something dirty. That's when I realized Vivian wasn't just another bureaucrat drunk on tiny power. She enjoyed this. "Mrs. Blackthorne," I said, keeping my voice steady, "that workshop helps disabled veterans." She didn't even blink. "Yes, well, your little hobby club doesn't override community needs. These men should focus on finding real employment instead of playing around with wood scraps." And right on cue, the hammering inside stopped. Danny appeared in the doorway, missing his left arm below the elbow, tool belt strapped on like habit, staring at Vivian like she'd just insulted his mother. She didn't even glance his way. "You have 72 hours to prepare for construction access," she said. "After that we'll pursue legal remedies." Then she turned, heels pecking at my gravel, and slid back into that BMW like she'd just finished a charity event. As her car disappeared, I stood there with my coffee going cold, realizing I wasn't just fighting for dirt and boards and a barn, I was fighting for my brother's last shot at healing. 72 hours turned into 72 hours of pure hell. By Thursday morning, I had a preliminary injunction notice taped to my front door like a legal scarlet letter. It came from some downtown Atlanta law firm that charges more per hour than most folks make in a week, claiming public necessity and essential infrastructure for community health and safety. Reading legal documents at dawn while your coffee gets cold, that's what defeat tastes like, bitter and lukewarm. By Friday, Vivian unleashed her favorite weapon, the Willowbrook neighborhood newsletter. Big headline, bold letters, like a crime report. Selfish neighbor blocks essential water infrastructure. Community safety at risk. Suddenly I'm the villain. A paranoid hermit. A problem. People who used to wave started studying their lawns like grass might bite. The hardware store clerk who'd been friendly for years barely grunted when I asked for deck screws. And then Saturday morning came with a sound that still makes my jaw tighten when I remember it: ping, 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 metal stakes being driven into frozen ground. I was teaching Tommy Morrison proper sanding technique. Tommy lost both legs below the knee in Kandahar, still calls me Sarge out of habit, when that sound started echoing across my land like nails into a coffin. Through the workshop window I saw a county surveyor pounding bright orange stakes along my line, a hard-hat guy taking measurements, and behind them Vivian, in those ridiculous heels, pointing at my workshop like she was planning a demolition party. "What's that racket, Sarge?" Tommy asked. "Trouble," I said, already walking. "Big trouble." I stepped outside, frost crunching under my boots, winter air biting my lungs, diesel exhaust from their truck mixing with Vivian's perfume, like someone tried to cover corruption with flowers. "Morning," I called. "Mind telling me what you're measuring on my land?" The hard-hat guy, Morrison Engineering, no relation to my Tommy, shifted like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Preliminary assessment, sir. Standard procedure." "Funny thing," I said. "I'm challenging your easement in court right now." Vivian clacked over, smiling like a shark. "Legal challenges don't stop assessments. We're well within our rights." So I pulled out my phone and started recording, because a JAG buddy once drilled it into me during my divorce. "Document everything, video beats," he said, just said every time. "For the record," I said, holding the camera steady, "this is October 15th, 8:47 a.m., Willowbrook HOA conducting surveys on disputed property while legal challenges are pending." Vivian's face drained. "You can't record this." "Actually I can," I said. "George's one-party consent." And that's when she played the card she thought would break me. "My research uncovered interesting information about your activities here," she purred. "Unlicensed commercial workshop, regular gatherings, without permits, possible zoning violations." My blood pressure spiked so hard I could hear it. "This is private veterans therapy." "That's not what the county will see," she said, voice sweet as poison. "I'd hate for your veteran friends to lose their little clubhouse over technicalities." Behind me, Tommy stood in the doorway, worry creasing his face, same look he had the day doctors told him he'd never walk normally again. And I felt something old and dangerous rise in my chest, not rage, not panic, focus. Because here's the thing about trying to intimidate someone who spent 20 years dealing with warlords, bureaucrats, and politicians: you better bring more than fancy paperwork. "You picked the wrong veteran to mess with," I said, phone still recording. Vivian's smile didn't move, but her eyes did. She turned to her BMW, and in that second I caught her making a quick phone call, lips moving just enough for me to read two phrases that made my blood go cold. "County inspector tomorrow morning." She wasn't threatening investigation, she was scheduling it. Monday arrived like a slap. County Inspector Dale Hoffman rolled up in a white pickup, gut hanging over his belt, clipboard in hand like a medieval weapon, Vivian's BMW right behind him like a shark following wounded prey. "Mr. Holloway," he announced, "we received complaints about unlicensed commercial activity." Through the workshop windows, I watched Danny teaching Pete Carson how to fit a corner bracket, two broken warriors finding purpose and patience. Sawdust in the air, pine smell mixing with coffee, and under it all, something metallic: fear and corruption. Hoffman marched through my shop like Sherman through Georgia, manufacturing problems that would have made a real engineer laugh out loud. "Outlet isn't GFCI protected. Fire hazard." "That outlet is a dedicated 20-amp circuit with proper grounding," I said, "wired to standards that exceed civilian code." He didn't care. He scribbled, "Unlicensed electrical work. Commercial activity without permits. Zoning violation." And while he performed his little play, I did what my divorce taught me to do: when something stinks, I checked public records. Thumb scrolling, heart steady, eyes sharp. Then I found it, and my coffee suddenly tasted like battery acid. 3 weeks ago, a payment from HOA Services, LLC to Dale Hoffman, $5,000 labeled Safety Consulting. I turned my phone so he could see it. Interesting consulting work you do, I said, loud enough for Vivian to hear. $5,000 from the same HOA that filed these complaints. Hoffman's face cycled through colors like a traffic light having a nervous breakdown. That's unrelated. $5,000 worth of unrelated? I asked. What kind of safety consulting does an HOA need for $5,000? Vivian jumped in, voice tight as piano wire. False accusations carry serious legal consequences. I'm just reading public records out loud, I said. And then the twist hit, not from me, from Danny. Sarge, he said, staring at Hoffman like he'd seen a ghost. That's the same inspector who condemned my cousin Elena's garage workshop last month right before her foreclosure. The shop went dead silent. 12 men, all of them familiar with loss, realizing they were watching the same scam on replay, the kind that doesn't just take property, it takes futures. That afternoon, I went digging, not with a shovel, with records. How did Willowbrook get its water, really? If they needed an essential pipeline, what was wrong with what they had? And then Wednesday showed up with heavy machinery on County Road 47, excavators and backhoes crawling toward my land like an occupying army, diesel exhaust mixing with morning dew, turning the air toxic. Their crew boss, Kowalski, built like a refrigerator with tattoos that definitely weren't patriotic, knocked at 7 sharp. Orders to dig test holes, he grunted. Problems go to the county. They positioned the excavator to block where my vets usually parked. Psychological warfare, HOA edition. Then the operator, young kid, shaky confidence, backed too close and clipped my water line with the bucket. Metal hit metal, and then that hissed pressurized water exploding into red Georgia clay, turning their neat little construction zone into a swamp. Men shouted, boots slid, equipment idled, and as the water washed away dirt, it revealed something that made my engineer brain light up like a Christmas tree. Concrete structures, old, deliberate, a buried system, not random foundation junk. Survey markers that didn't match modern maps. And what looked like the remains of a massive water collection point, the kind you build when you're feeding more than a single farmhouse. My phone rang. Danny, calling from the VA. Sarge, you sitting down? I'm next to Mrs. Bellamy. She lived by Elena. She says Elena found old documents right before her foreclosure, water rights dating back to the 1940s. Then the records disappeared after a county audit. That's when the puzzle pieces slammed together so hard it felt like a blast wave. Elena's foreclosure. Hoffman's pattern. Vivian's desperate timeline. And now buried infrastructure on my land someone had spent decades hiding. An hour later, I sat in a VA parking lot listening to Elena Rodriguez. Eyes tired, voice steady. The kind of steady you get when life already punched you too many times. My grandmother always said our land came with water rights, she told me. Primary aquifer access. But when I tried to use it to fight the foreclosure, the clerk said all the originals were destroyed. She pulled out a faded photo, her grandmother standing beside a concrete wellhead that looked exactly like what the excavator had just exposed on my property. Tommy leaned in, whispering, Sarge, that's on your land. And the world tilted sideways, because suddenly Vivian's pipeline wasn't about community infrastructure. At all, it was a cover-up. If those old water rights were real, if the aquifer access was tied to families like mine and Elena's, then Willowbrook's whole shiny development, every lawn, every sprinkler, every pool, might be sitting on stolen water. We went to the county courthouse that same day. Not the fancy front desk, the back rooms, the storage that smells like paper dust and forgotten history. An elderly clerk named Mrs. Peterson, the kind of woman who's seen every flavor of local nonsense, took one look at our faces and quietly said, "Follow me." 3 hours in those boxes changed everything. We found a 1947 geological survey, my land marked as a primary spring collection point. We found Willowbrook's original permits claiming municipal connection and hookup records showing they never connected. For 38 years, those homes were pulling water through a private company set up to hide the theft, Clearwater Municipal Services. Then Elena found the ownership papers. Vivian Blackthorne through a shell company. Not just HOA president, the owner of the fake water company charging residents municipal rates while paying zero for water rights. Pure profit, built on pushing families off land with foreclosures and condemnations the second they asked questions. And right there, sitting under fluorescent lights humming like angry bees, I felt the moral of my whole damn life crawl out of the dust and sit beside me. Power doesn't always show up with a gun, sometimes it shows up with letterhead, a smile, and the confidence that nobody will bother to look in the boxes. Most people don't lose because they're wrong, they lose because they're tired, isolated, and convinced the system is too big to fight. But I wasn't alone, and Vivian made the mistake of thinking broken soldiers are easy targets. We didn't just fight her, we outflanked her. Clearwater was drowning in debt, 3 months from bankruptcy. So we did something that still makes me laugh when I say it out loud. I sold everything that wasn't nailed down. Truck downgraded, antiques gone. My restored motorcycles sold to somebody else's midlife crisis. And with Elena, a sharp corporate lawyer named Marcus Bellamy, and a mountain of evidence, we filed to buy Clearwater's assets. Vivian panicked, of course. She tried to have me hauled in for a psychiatric evaluation, said I was paranoid, delusional, unstable. She tried eminent domain, tried intimidation, even sent a suit with a briefcase full of cash to my porch, like we were in some bargain bin mafia movie. And because she couldn't stop escalating, she handed us what we needed: witness tampering, bribery trails, sabotage attempts, real crimes with fingerprints. So I made one phone call: FBI, Atlanta field office. Special Agent Sarah Rodriguez showed up with federal comm and a team that smelled like consequences. Computers got seized. Accounts got frozen. Consulting fees started looking a lot less cute. Then came the night Vivian thought she'd control, the Willowbrook HOA meeting. Usually a dozen people arguing about fence height, now packed with 300 residents, news crews, and attention so thick you could chew it. Vivian stood at the podium with a slideshow, painting herself as the savior, me as the selfish obstacle. People were nodding because it's easy to believe a confident liar when the truth is inconvenient. That was my cue. I walked to the front, held up a small device that looked like a garage door opener, and said, "Before you continue, I'd like to demonstrate something about our community's water supply." I pressed the button. Across Willowbrook, sprinklers stopped mid-spray, faucets went dry, pool pumps died, water fountains coughed their last pathetic gurgle and went silent. 300 people froze in the kind of silence you only get when reality hits all at once. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, letting it hang just long enough, "meet the new owner of Clearwater Municipal Services, the company that's been supplying your water for 38 years. Chaos erupted. Phones came out. People shouted. Vivian's face did things I didn't know a face could do. Agent Rodriguez stepped forward, calm as a blade. "This is part of an ongoing federal investigation." Vivian snapped, screaming about property values, about her community, about doing whatever it takes, and that's when she said the sentence that ended her. "I don't care about your federal laws," she yelled. "This is my community." 300 residents realized they'd been living under a petty dictator in a blazer, and dictators hate daylight. Handcuffs clicked under fluorescent lights. Vivian Blackthorne got walked out, still arguing, still convinced she was the hero, and I turned the water back on, because unlike her, I didn't want innocent families punished, I wanted the thief exposed. 6 months later, Vivian was in federal prison. Hoffman and his buddies got sentenced. Elena got restitution. Rates dropped. The workshop expanded, and those 12 men who'd been treated like broken soldiers now had steady jobs maintaining the very water system Vivian used to steal. Tommy diagnosing pump problems like a genius, Danny charming angry customers into calm like he was born for it. And some mornings, I still sit on Rose's porch with that paint stripper coffee, listening to mockingbirds run their mouths, smelling sawdust and honeysuckle, and I think about how the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's building something so clean and honest that everybody can finally see the difference. So here's my question: when your HOA says a project is essential, do you actually know where the money goes and who benefits when you stop asking questions? Drop your HOA nightmare stories in the comments. Tell me where you think the line is between community needs and straight-up abuse of power, and if you've ever seen someone in a position of small authority act like they own the world. Share what happened, because I promise you, you're not the only one.